Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2013 VAUXHALL Mokka, also known as the Opel Mokka, also known as the Buick Enclave. It's been around since 2012 and ran all the way until 2019, where under Vauxhall's merger with PSA, the Mokka got the chop. Which is strange because the Mokka was quite a popular car. In its first 4 years they sold over 500,000 of these things. If ever there was a car model name dreamt up in a brainstorming session, it's got to be the Mokka, hasn't it? I mean, can you imagine the daydreaming employee sitting back in his chair, chewing the end of his pen, and suddenly the pressure's on him, he's got to come up with a name. So he looks down at his coffee and there we go. Mokka? Anyway, regardless of how they got to the name, that's what they went with. I'm not a huge lover of this kind of car, the small SUV. They're just a little bit forgettable and bland. They're a bit anonymous. And let's be honest, they're a little bit pointless. As a family car, people are sold on the idea. And I think that's due to the whole keeping up with the Joneses thing, where people have to be seen in a small SUV. It's a little bit strange. Hardly anybody needs one of these cars because of its capabilities. More often than not, they've just seen one on the school run and they thought, that looks quite nice, better get myself one of those. That's really how and why these cars are sold, because logically speaking, you get more boot space in an Astra, you get more performance from a Focus, and you get more economy from a Golf. So, with your sensible hat on, you would never buy a small SUV. But cutting aside from all that, if you are in the market for a small SUV, the Mokka isn't a bad option. The styling's quite good. It's inoffensive, it's good looking enough, it's not ugly like some small SUVs. I think they've done a good job with the design. Engine wise, you could have bought a plain Jane 1.6 4-cylinder petrol, or a 1.4 turbocharged petrol, or the 1.7 turbo diesel engine that's fitted to this. Now it's coarse, loud, unrefined. In fact, let me start it so you can hear it for yourself. Beeping off. So yeah, it's quite agricultural. Although the engine's quite unrefined, it's quite torquey, which is handy when you've got this car full of people and things. This 1.7 diesel engine was originally developed by Isuzu about 200 years ago, and you can tell. It's quite tough but not very sophisticated, a bit like Roy Keane. Most Mokkas are only two-wheel drive. This one isn't. This one has the four-wheel drive system, which sends all of the power to the front two wheels until it senses that it's losing grip, and at that point then it sends 50% of the power to the rear. But yeah, most Mokkas are two-wheel drive. I think it's worth mentioning, if you live in the UK, our winters aren't that bad. We do occasionally get snow, but it's never that bad that you can't leave the house. And when we do get a bit of snow, a four-wheel drive Mokka like this isn't really going to come to the rescue. Your road will be blocked because the car in front is a two-wheel drive Focus and it'll just be spinning its wheels hopelessly. So whether you've got four-wheel drive or not, you're still not going to get to work. Also bear in mind, a four-wheel drive car is only as good as the tyres it has. You could get a Defender stuck if the tyres are rubbish, so that's worth bearing in mind. Quite often you're better off with a two-wheel drive car with a decent set of winter tyres. And also everything slips on ice whether you've got four-wheel drive or not. A Bowler Wildcat will still get stuck on ice. The interior is okay. I mean, it's functional, it's not very stylish. This one's been finished in a rather fetching colour of brown and blue, which is an odd colour choice. It's got everything you need, but like I say, the finish isn't the best. Everything feels a little bit cheap. This one has obviously been well looked after though, because the plastics in these Mokkas are quite cheap and flimsy. So if it has been abused, all the plastics are scratched, and this one isn't, so I can tell it's been looked after. The driving position's quite good. You sat up fairly high. You sat here in this quite comfortable armchair with this nice armrest here. So yeah, it's got everything that you'd need. This one's got sat-nav, DAB radio. Everything's fairly easy to use and operate, but it's just not very luxurious. But then it's quite a cheap car really, so what can you expect? Depending which model you go for, Mokkas are quite well spec'd. They often come with heated seats, heated steering wheel, sunroof, front and rear parking sensors. They really do have everything that you'd need. I've always found the dash display in this era of Vauxhall quite confusing. It's not nice to look at. The display isn't very good, the font's not very nice. Yeah, they could have done better there. But the colour sat-nav screen up there is big and bold and easy to see. What else have we got? You've got a couple of cup holders, some more storage there. You've got USB and auxiliary points here so you can play your music. You get cruise control, you get hill descent as well, which is a little bit unusual because nobody will ever need that in a Mokka. You get two glove compartments, which is handy because neither one of them are very big. This one has this eco mode, which is basically stop-start, which I detest. Now what's unusual about that is there's no memory function, so every time you start the car, if you don't want it on, you have to press the button. The rear seats are actually quite high, so you get a good view. And also there's enough headroom. I'm like 5'10", 5'11", and there's plenty of headroom here. There's quite a bit of leg room too, so it's not too cramped. But the best thing, hands down, about the Mokka, forget about how it drives or how it looks or any of those things, the best thing about all Mokkas is they come with a domestic plug socket here. So you can plug in your laptop, your lava lamp, whatever you like. You can even, so long as the engine's running of course, make yourself a nice piece of toast. It's a bit like the Vauxhall Insignia I filmed with recently. It's not great to drive, it's not quick, but it's not slow, it's not thirsty, but it's not very economical. It's just okay at pretty much everything. From this diesel engine, it's quite easy to average 40 miles per gallon, so they are quite efficient. It rides okay. I mean, it's quite comfortable. The seats are quite comfortable and supportive. It's a big, tall car, so there's a little bit of body roll around corners, but you're never going to drive this car and push it to its limits. So yeah, it just does a reasonable job at pretty much everything. There is a little bit of road and wind noise, but again, it's not too bad. So yeah, it's not terrible, but it's also not the class leader. Saying that, one area where the Mokka does excel are the running costs, because they're quite low. To tax this car in the UK, it only costs £30 a year. That's for the diesel model. The petrols are higher. And it's quite easy to average 40 miles per gallon, or 50 or 55 on a motorway run. So they are cheap to run. Obviously, a petrol model will do 5 or 10 miles per gallon less than that. You get ISOFIX seats in the rear, you get airbags everywhere, so it's quite a safe car. It's got the maximum score on its NCAP safety rating of 5 out of 5 stars. The other good thing is they're very cheap to buy used. So you'll pick up one of these Mokkas with sensible miles on the clock for about 5 grand. If you want one with low miles like this one's only done 42,000 miles with good service history. But if you want one like this, low mileage and good spec, then expect to spend between 6 and 7 grand. Also, if you buy one with this diesel engine, make sure it's had its timing belt due. They're due at 84 months or 80,000 miles, so make sure that's been done. It's about £250 to get that done, but it's worth factoring in. Make sure it's had regular oil changes, just make sure it's been looked after. I would be wary of buying an ex-Motability one of these because quite often they've just been abused. If the first owner's got this on the Motability scheme, quite often, because they don't have to pay for it or pay for the maintenance, quite often they're just trashed. I know there are exceptions to that, but more often than not, they're just abused. So I wouldn't shout from the rooftops and urge everybody to go out and buy a Mokka, but if you are after a small SUV, and most people are these days, the Mokka isn't a bad option. It's not bad to look at, not bad to drive, not bad to run. So yeah, you could do far worse. Like the Nissan Duke, for example. What else can I say? It's just an acceptable small crossover. So thanks once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, cheers guys. Take care. See you soon.